In this video, I'm going to start the process of redesigning this Cashbook transaction model because there are some issues I have with the design, and I'm redesigning it. I initially tried to mirror the presenters the way they were actually designed in the desktop. But on a second thought, I can see that there is a better way I can achieve this by instead of using the naming presenter, I will just design the model and separate all the actions of the presenter into the controllers. So the whole idea is because the implementation of this Cashbook is this. When it's pending, if I log in, posting, I see my unsubmitted records, I can submit from here. I can delete from here, or I go into it and do some editing. So I created, you know, I followed the pattern of the presenter, and if you look at these are supposed to be the view models, but you will see that I used three different partial classes. A partial class is essentially the same class. Is a provision that allows you to separate the definition or the implementation of your logic of the same class into different physical files. So you see they have the same name, but they have dots. So these are the model definition, which contains the models scattered with logic inside to manipulate the UI from inside the model. I put the presenter inside. So these are bad. This is not the way things should go, but it was still work in progress then. So you can say that I want to refactor this implementation now because I'm the the initial design involved a total number of physical files as the model. You can imagine this is 1, 2, 3, which caters for editing the cash book. And this is for 1, 2, 3. This is for creating a new one because the presenters are different. Then this one is for listing it of this view. So when you click on create new, I use this model, these three models, which is one, but I separated because the whole logic of manipulation, drop down activities and everything is on the view model itself. So I want to adopt a strategy of putting the logic inside the controllers rather than in the view model. So that is the approach I want to do now. So now I'm just going to create only one class, one non-persistent object, and call it Cashbook transaction view model, right? And I am going to remove this as usual. If you don't remove this default class option, the class will end up, this default class will make this model appear on the menu automatically, but I don't want that. So that's why I'm always removing it. So now I don't really need to bother myself with too much. I just need to do some copy and paste of things that are relevant. All the properties that are relevant, I'm going to copy them and I'm going to name them appropriately because these names were initially geared towards the presenter. And the reason why I have some of this display name was because of I cannot display this on the field. So I'm going to adjust that. And so, but before I do that now, let me just copy from here. These are the properties of the Cashbook. Properties, and I will explain each one. So when you add a new view model, what you get is a GUID as the primary key field, but in our own case, we want it to be int. So let me do some cleanup now. I want to do some cleanup. Let me start from the top. Now there's no need for this code again. Now this property is going to be called, let's call it what it is. It is the transaction head. Remember, small letters are fields. Wow. So we don't need the whole of this. These are not part of the properties. Then I have this. So since I've called it the right name, transaction head, I don't need to start decorating it with this again. Okay, I can leave the required, but I want it to be required. Right. For now, I will leave this one. I'm going to visit these areas, but you can imagine that this field is this one. This is this field. So, and the header list is supposed to be the list that will bring the drop down. So we'll still leave it here with the red mark because I'm still going to bring in the properties of that list. And this one, I'm going to call it transaction subhead. There's no need to use Cashbook. The transaction subhead. And so then I don't need this. This one is needed. I can still leave this. This is what we're saying here is that this thing should only be enabled when this one is selected. So I'm going to take this name from here and replace it with this one. So this is saying when we're on the detailed view like this, see it's not enabled. It's when we select, you will now see it's enabled. So what is responsible for that is this logic, is this attribute here on the subhead. So once I call that transaction subhead, I can quickly replace the fields. Then we don't need the whole of this. I want to follow single responsibility principle. The responsibility of this model is just to list all the things we want to see on the UI. The logic of how we are going to manipulate them should not be here. So I'll leave this one and I've corrected this one. Yes, I will still come back and define this. So then the next one is Cashbook transaction classification. So let's just remove this tautology for all of them. Call it transaction classification, which is just another drop down. So sorry, it's supposed to be this is not a list, it's the property, the field. The list is still going to come. So we do the capital T. Then we don't need all this again since we've called it the name. In fact, I think we can even call this one classification. Let's call it classification. Closer to what it is than sorry. But yeah. So this one is document number. It's okay. Required. Narration, this one is okay. Ref date. It's not bad too. Alright. Then this is the cash book. So this is the cash book. Let's call it cash book. Then we don't need this again because we just don't put the capital. See, cash book. We'll leave this one for later. Then this one is saying that once we've not selected the transaction subhead, it should not be enabled. And that is what is responsible for seeing the cash book is disabled here. But immediately we select the subhead, you see it's now enabled. So those are some of the things that has been provided. So amount is okay. Then this is transaction type. We need this. Yeah, take care of the internals. So because of this is not needed. Then the one with the capital here. So we'll still leave this one. Then the next one is we'll do customer underscore supplier. The field is a dynamic one. So once you choose that you want to withdraw from the bank, it means you want to pay a supplier. But once you say you want to deposit in the bank, it means a customer wants to pay you. So that's why we call it customer supplier field. So the presenter, when it's supplying the data, it looks at the subhead, the transaction type that you selected. And that's why you see this logic that we state that if the transaction type is not selected, which is this, that thing should not be enabled because it wants to know whether you want to withdraw so that it can bring the list of uh, suppliers, or you want to deposit so that it can give you a customer list. Then this is the budget code. Yes, budget code is okay and is pointing rightfully to a budget detail, which we don't have problem with. It's all right. Right. The budget code, we don't need this. Sorry. Okay. So let's bring in all these lists. Now, these are the bases now for the drop downs. So any property that is a drop down, you decorate it with its list. This is the structure that represents the list. So I will also come here and this is get set. Now I am going to briefly change the design of this, but let me copy them all. Because right now the logic that is going to be setting these properties now is going to be outside them. It's not going to be in the view model. Initially it was in the view model. That is why we were saying you can see that they are read-only properties. They only have a getter. When you see implementation of a property in C# and it has only a getter, it means it is read-only. So one thing we can do to make this code clean is this. I always like to do it. So I'll say come here to clear hash and put a region. So do hash region. Now we'll call the region drop down list. Right. Drop down list practice. So I can put all of them in this. So now we don't want any logic in the view model again. So I'm going to remove that and I am going to do a set. Yes. Initially the logic to set it was only is available internally, but now we're going to be setting it from inside the controller. So all of them, we are going to give all of them set functions. So I need to copy it. change this one back to, but let me just leave all of them with the names that they came with the list. And leave all of them like that. There's no need changing because I've changed this one as classification as the property, but the list can still remain that way. And, I need to do the set. So what you will have noticed now is that automatically all the red parts have disappeared because I've now brought in all their lists, subhead lists, the properties that represents those lists. So that is it. We have declared the properties, and this is what we are going to leave in the view model. Just the properties that would dovetail into the UI. We are okay with that. The logic to bring the list, what will happen when we click this and all that, because it is when you click the head, for example, that it brings the list of subhead. That is different from saying that if I don't select anything from the head, this one should not be enabled. Those ones is already mapped as an appearance attribute on the UI. So, but the real logic itself to take to carry what is selected here and go and bring the corresponding list of items, that logic is what we're going to do in the controller that we're going to use. We're going to transfer that logic to the controller. And initially, that logic was in a file here I called this extension functions file. So this was the model properties, this was the list of drop downs, and this was the functions. I call them functions. You can see in a lot of logic, repetitive logic and all that on the model. Because like I said, partial classes is a way of separating the implementation of your class into separate physical files. But during runtime, the compiler is going to aggregate them into one single class. So, but for convenience, because if I had taken all this code and put it in just one single file, it would have looked so scary. So, but because I now separated them by doing, because apart from decorating it with partial, all the files, you must give them the same name, then dot. This is where you can now personalize that this physical one is a partial class that is responsible for drop down list, this one is responsible for the functions, and this one is responsible for the model, right? So this is the design of the model that's captured everything in the UI. So in the next video, we're now going to go into the design of the UI, put the thing on the UI and look at how we're going to now start writing the logic in the controllers. So see you in the next video.